Good evening and welcome to the Glens County Council meeting for Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. And we'll start the meeting out with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Collins will lead us this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to go right to our presentations. Our first presentation is regarding the revaluation of property within the city of Glens Falls by Robert Kozarek of KLW, and they'll be the firm conducting the revaluation on behalf of the city. We wanted to at least introduce them to the team and have them come up and explain what the process is. So Robert, I would ask you to come up to the mic. Kind of explain.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. I appreciate it. We like to meet with either town boards or city councils right when we get kicked off in our projects. We started approximately 2 weeks ago in the city, setting up and starting to do some field review work for this reassessment project. Just wanted to give you an idea what is involved in the reassessment project. So the initial phase, we will be traveling through the city to view all the properties within the city. We'll be photographing them, reviewing the information that we have on file, or what we call inventory. So like the style of building, what type of siding, overall condition, and amenities like porches, garages, that sort of thing. So our team here, we have two of our members of our team, Mike Adriano and Dave LeBron. They'll be primarily driving around, just stopping in front of people's houses, and actually we may do a lot of walking in the city. It's pretty densely populated, so that actually looks like it's easier to do. But we will be reviewing all properties within the city, just to make sure that we have all the information correct on everybody's property. It's important to do that because we want good information to start when we start doing our analyzing sales and values on all properties within the city. The old adage, garbage in, garbage out, we want to make sure everything's clean going in, so we have good numbers when we come out. So once that first step is completed, which will take us through probably October, we'll start doing valuation review, and that's where we come up with a market value on every property in the city, whether it's residential, multifamily, commercial, vacant land, parks, churches, government buildings, the hospital, all buildings within the city. Once we come up with those values, then we'll be back out again, field reviewing, just to double check our information to make sure we have all that information right. That will really take us through into the beginning of next year to that process. At that point, all property owners will receive what an assessment disclosure notice. What that notice will tell them is what your assessment was, what it's going to, and an estimated idea of taxes. So people will have understanding not only what the value changes to, but how that affects the tax liability on each property. At that point in time, we hold what we call informal meetings. So we will offer the opportunity for any property owner that wants to meet with us to understand how we developed that value, to sit down with a representative of our company and review the information that we use to come up with the new value. So now it's important to note that we're using sales as comparable properties, and that's how we determine value for each of the what we call the subject properties. And our sales data will end as of July 1 of this year. So sales that occurred over the last 2 to 3 years, up until a week ago or a week and a half ago, is the data set that we're going to use to develop value. We're
Would
probably
you say July 1?
I'm sorry?
July 1.
July 1 is what we call the data valuation, the valuation date.
Sales end, the end of the period is July 1st. What's the beginning of the period?
We haven't determined that yet. What we will look at is how many sales we have over 1 year. It will be at least 1 year. So it'll be July 1 of 20 to July 1 of 21. If we feel the need to have more sales, we can go back a couple more years. Typically, we try to stay within, we want to stay within that year, because then we also have to look at time trends, and if values change over periods of time, we want to make sure we capture those changes if we go further back in time.
I'm just a little concerned that Glens Falls is in the top 10 cities that increased sales for properties across.
Increase in value.
Increase in value.
Yeah, that's happening a lot. That's happening everywhere.
Yeah, but we just have to be the top 10 in the country? Is that right?
Really?
Yeah.
New York State.
Yeah, in New York State, sorry. So that was like 30%.
Okay.
And so 27, right? 27 point something percent.
Yes.
20,
Sure.
24? Yeah. So, I was a little worried that might be a bubble or not necessarily an accurate valuation, especially since, it's because of COVID, because of people swinging out of the city, out of New York City to come to Glens Falls. So how can we protect to make sure those aren't
Skewed numbers.
skewed or artificially inflated?
Well, we'll look at that, and we look at all sales that occur within a neighborhood and within a municipality, and we'll look at sales if they're sales that are really out of whack. We don't necessarily have to use those sales as a comparable property. Same thing with low sales. If there's sales that look like, why did that house sell for that low? Right? We can eliminate those from our pool of data. Right? So we try to. The goal here isn't to raise everybody's assessment as high as we can. What we want to do is we want to raise it to be reasonably close to fair market value.
Right.
Okay? We don't want to be excessive. We don't want to be low. We want to be reasonably close to what the fair market value is. Now, what happens in communities is when you do a reassessment, it doesn't just affect your property, right? We're not just raising your assessment. We're raising all of your assessments, okay? And what we want to do is we want to treat everybody fair and equitably, right? We want to make sure that we're using the same data set. We're not, we're not trying to push anybody's value high. We're not trying to push anybody's value low. We're trying to be fair to everybody. And we treat that, we take that very seriously. We're not, we're reasonable, and I'm an appraiser. I've been an appraiser for almost 30 years. I've been doing this reassessment work for going back to 2000, and we really try to balance what's happening in the marketplace as far as, and I know there's a lot of bubbles in a lot of places, and what we don't know going forward is it really a bubble, or did it just come up and now maybe it'll plateau and just stay there, right?
Absolutely.
We can't see in the future. All we can do is look in the past and measure what has happened. The best way to maintain that, to make sure that people don't, if it was a bubble, to make that correction, is to really make regular adjustments on your assessment roll and to review that on a regular basis.
We haven't done.
Right. So you're not the worst. One of the last communities I did up in the Adirondack Park area.
Well, that's good to know.
We when we were doing our research, we were trying to figure out the last time they did a reassessment, and we found, this was in 2014 that we did this. We found paperwork that suggested that they might have done a reassessment in 1953, but there was nothing definitive that was the case. So, their equalization rate, which is, equal, if you do you all know what equalization rates are? Okay, so their equalization rate was either 2.68% or 3.52, I can't remember. So extremely low. So, but again, when we do these reassessments, we do reassess every property. Okay, so if the value of everybody's property doubles, right, the tax rate for the following year will be cut in half, and everybody's taxes stay the same. So, it's not just the assessment going up does not necessarily mean that taxes will go up.
Now, I was going to ask about the timing of that, because you said it would be the beginning of the next year that
Correct.
you would finish, and we will have already set the tax rate. So will these newest values kick in for the following
So.
The taxable status date is March 1st, and then tentative
Will it be
roll
done by
is
then?
May.
All right.
Yeah, we have to,
Okay.
we have to.
Okay, okay.
We
I wasn't sure if
absolutely have to.
you said you were still gonna be doing it at the beginning of the year, so I just wanted to figure out the timing.
First two months of the year.
23, 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, so
School taxes
Febru-
will be effective for
First.
22 and 23, right?
correct. So yeah, for the first two, or January, February, we'll be finalizing our numbers. We'll send the notices out the end of February, 1st of March, and then we will hold these informal meetings with property owners through March, make our changes through April to make sure everything's all updated and cleaned up for May 1st tentative roll.
Robert, I have a question. I had a couple of constituents in my ward. We got a new subdivision, a lot of new houses being built, and I had a couple of people express concern about how that would, those new home sales impact the value of older existing homes that are, that these people are living in. Does that have any bearing on their assessment? Are you using similar stock in making their assessments?
We typically know a new construction will not affect 60-year-old construction unless the neighborhood changes with those existing 60-year-old homes. So what we do when we're doing an appraisal, whether it's for a reassessment or if I'm doing an appraisal on a mortgage, we look for similar sales that sold within the prior year or prior 2 years. Similar meaning building style, age, condition, quality of construction. So if you have a a house built in 1948, a ranch built in 1948, and that residential subdivision with a 2020 ranch, those are very different animals. So unless we absolutely have to, we wouldn't use that as a comparable. But then we also have to make adjustments for differences in condition, in age, maybe the quality of construction may be different, or other different amenities. So
Materials, finishes, you adjust
Exactly.
for all that.
we attempt to, yes. Yes. So that goes to quality of construction is the type of material that's used to construct the residence. So
And how would you gauge that? How would you gauge the type of materials used?
that is difficult because we are just reviewing the property from the public right away.
Sure.
So a lot of what we call grade or quality of construction is already on file. We seldom make changes to that. We look at things that may lend to a change in grade. I mean, you could have a house built in 1930 that's a square, 2-story colonial, no ornamentation, no extra, trim or anything like that. And then you could have, a house built around the same time period that's very like Victorian-ish, right? Extra trim, extra peaks and gables on the roof. That would lend it may be a different quality of construction.
But it's true that other than new construction, we have paper to start from. We have records and building permits and things that, for construction, additions, whatever. Those building permits should have a lot of that information.
It should, and we've talked with your building inspector already.
Yeah.
In regards to how updated the records are and what we can look at.
Right. I mean, there's some.
So we look at we look at as much data as we can come up with. The existing information on the assessment roll, building permits. We look at sales data through the MLS. We look at Zillow. We look at Trulia. I haven't looked at like Facebook Marketplace, but maybe I should start. Because people are just selling houses, it's across the country. I saw recently, I think a couple months ago, across the country, National Association of Realtors said that the inventory available for sale is 40% lower than it was a year ago. So when you have that low inventory, interest rates are so low, it brings more people into the purchasing pool, which then increases demand and price. So, this is happening all over, and it's easy to sell a house. You just put a sign out front.
So you're not just obviously doing residential, as you said before. I mean, this is commercial. This is it's property, and obviously those assessments your assessment tools are done
Correct. On the commercial side, we look at income, the income approach to value, what the, you know, if you have a strip plaza, what are those storefronts, what are they generating, what's the vacancy rate, what's the normal expenses to come up with a value from the income approach. So we look at, for commercial properties, we look at sales as well as income. And depending on the property type, you know, we may lean more on the income approach versus the sales comparison approach.
And the individuals doing the evaluations, vehicles are marked, right?
Correct. We have a window sticker that we put in the back window of the cars that we're driving. We've also talked with the chief of police to let him know who's working in town, when they'll be there, and we have a schedule. I gave them a schedule along with to Susan on the planned personnel that we will have in town.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
Does it include roadways? So you said parks, buildings, roads?
No.
No.
How about property that the city owns, like the reservoirs up West Mount?
Yes. All vacant and improved property. So now, property that's owned by the city or by the county or by the state, or any church, or I believe the hospital is also Rural Section 8, which is they're non-taxable properties. Even though they're non-taxable, we do assign a value.
Right.
Okay, because that goes to,
General value of the
you have to have
municipality.
your total value of your municipality for your county share of both what you pay to the county and what you receive in sales tax. So
Well, and also with water and
All
sewer.
water,
So,
sewer,
but
is
ours is in another town.
no, only within this within the city of Glens Falls.
Gotcha. So there is an assessment on our reservoirs, it's just not gonna be in this.
Right.
Right.
Look at it.
Queensbury already done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in addition to that, also the assessments that may change are what's called what's it? Utilities, poles and wires. I can't remember. Special assessments on
Right away.
on telephone poles, telephone lines. Well, I don't know about Verizon, but, I don't know about fiber, but the cable lines,
Right.
all the utilities.
We have a little fiber going in the city, not much, but you're right. Yeah.
So our water and sewer, it's the building, not necessarily the value of the sewer line. or
Correct.
the sewer system.
Correct. It'll be the value of the building and the land.
And how about like on Primes Island where we have land along the Hudson River that's undeveloped?
That'll be valued as vacant land. All properties in the town will be valued how they're being used as of March 1st of 2022.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, we appreciate you
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
and explaining it to us, and I'm sure you're gonna be in front of us again, and, I know that Susan will have your card, so if any of the members have questions, we'll be able to get over.
I'll leave cards with Susan along with my cell phone number. If any of you have any questions, please reach out. And if you'd like me to come back and if you give you updates, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to come back.
Great.
Does this individual have these general certified, New York State certified appraisals and appraisers?
I'm sorry, I got a question.
Do you have New York State certified general appraisers to do commercial?
Yes,
How many?
5. I'm a New York State certified residential appraiser.
Yeah, I know.
Two of my business partners are commercial certified general. One is an MAI. And then we have 3 additional people that are also involved in the project.
Great, thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have a presentation by Steve from Creighton Manning. I never can pronounce your last name, so regarding design and proposed downtown connector trail.
Thank you. Is it okay if I stand back here and don't use the microphone, or is that gonna?
Actually, it probably will help the audience. I don't think they heard much of the last
Maybe
time.
maybe you could take the microphone.
Maybe hold.
Take the microphone.
Is the microphone working?
Make sure.
red light's on. Hello? Hello?
It's dead.
Sorry.
You still hold
Just speak up, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your time. I don't think much of it, but I did just want to step in or stop in the meeting tonight, give the council and public a general update on this project, just where it's going, how we got here. My name is Steve Galuski. I'm with Great Bay Engineering. I've been working in the city quite a while now. I do just want to take a minute to acknowledge that I'm a little melancholy that this is the last public meeting that I'll get to work with Steve Girls around and coordinate. He's on the next phase of his career, and so it's been good. I've worked with Steve.
He looks real sad.
And he'll probably say some snide remarks to me later on. But it's been good. So real quick, just what are our introductions? We're going to talk about the project history, what the existing conditions are, what the objectives, what the problems we're trying to solve. We're going to talk about the schedule, next steps, and then I can just open it up for questions that we can address at the open. So project history, there's been a lot of prior planning studies down in this area. Just to orient everyone, so we're generally in the Ward 5 area, down by Murray Street, West Glens Falls. So the Brownfield Opportunity Area, the Crimes Island Impact Study, the city's progressed almost every major corridor into and out of the city: Hudson Avenue, Broad Street, Lawrence Street. All of those streets, all those networks have improved the infrastructure for bicycles and pedestrians. That's anything going along. So there's a really good backbone that's been formed, getting everyone into downtown and kind of connecting the out neighborhoods. Then you have the DRI, which is work in progress. Again, more investments in the infrastructure. With improving downtown, adding attractions, finding ways to draw people more into the downtown core area of Glens Falls. So in 2018, I worked with Ed Bartholomew to develop a funding application for the New York State DOT Transportation Alternatives Program. And one of the key things that Ed just kept hammering to me was, Steve, it's the connections. It's the connections. It's the connector project. And it was really the buzzword. If you were ever looking at the application, I think it appears no less than 100 times. It's connecting this, connecting that, connecting this. So it really hammered that home. And it really helps kind of frame what the intent of the project is. So through DOT, it is capped funding. There's not additional funding floating out there. The city's responsible for any overruns. It is a 20% local match. So it's 80% federal, 20% city. The total funding award was just over $1.4 million. That was awarded in 2019. So just to orient everyone on the project area, I mentioned the West Glens Falls, and this map really does a good job, I think, of kind of calling out some of the connections that are needed specifically for bicycles and pedestrians. So you have downtown, Hudson Avenue, you have the hospital, you have Apple Cove, you have the Feeder Canal Trail, Crimes Island, West Glens Falls, all the neighborhoods in this area, and residential homes. And really, this side of the city doesn't really have a good non-motorized way to get to the Feeder Canal, to get to downtown. It's go South Street, but it's really not a good way. To get to Haviland Cove, they have to go to Bush Street. So it was just kind of looking at, all right, what can we do? What impactful, granular improvements can we make to improve the connectivity in this part of the city? And so many of you are familiar with this. Existing conditions, Murray Street, we looked at it as this is an opportunity. Very similar to Hudson Avenue. Remember how Hudson Avenue was, 5 or 6 years ago. 4 lanes of pavement, heavy truck traffic. Really, you don't need the 4 lanes. Relatively underutilized. It was made for growth traffic, growth projections that were never really realized. So it was wide, expansive pavement. And the sidewalks are a little haphazard. They stop just short of just in the Leaving Park. So the idea is, what can we better use than we have for Murray Street? Murray Street, South Street, there's an existing traffic signal. That traffic signal doesn't have the pedestrian push buttons that you see in most of your bikes in this area, just due to width constraints, we couldn't fit into bike lanes, so that's why we're showing shared lane markings. In that area, the bikes are gonna have shared lanes with any trucks and traffic.
Steve, are we doing sidewalks on both sides of Murray Street?
Yes.
Okay.
So these photos are of the canal bridges. The one on the left is a catalog photo of the truss that we're proposing. The one on the right is up at the Feeder Canal Park, just outside the city limits, just over the canal, just to kind of give you a sense for what it's going to look like, after everything's done. So in summary, on Murray Street, you're going to have bike lanes from Broad Street to Mohegan Street. You'll have shared lanes from Mohegan Street to the canal. There'll be new sidewalks from Mohegan Street to the canal. There's new pedestrian signals that I referenced. We're going to have push buttons and the light symbols that you can see throughout downtown. Just to bring that up to code. Upgraded curb ramps, I mentioned that, spot locations. One thing that we were able to work in that I think was a really good value added item was the addition of a few parallel parking spaces right in front of the park. So as you're driving north of Murray Street, there's going to be a few parking spaces that get people right to the park. If you think about it now, there's kind of ad hoc parking to the south, which is kind of along the sidewalk, or they're across the street in that gravel parking lot and across Murray Street. So that was a good thing. We worked with Jim and Bill and some other city staff just to kind of think about something they brought up and it was something we could work in the project, with minimal impacts and very easy to incorporate. Pedestrian bicycle bridges, I already mentioned those. Those are going to be Murray Street, Water Street, and then Mohegan Street, there'll be shared lane markings, from Murray Street all the way out to Water Street, and that crosses over, crosses Glens in the middle as well. So project schedule, where we are right now is we're in preliminary design. We are getting ready to, as part of this process that we're in right now, we're getting ready to submit to the Department of Transportation that yes, this is the project that we're going to move forward. These are the estimated costs. We want to get into the nitty-gritty design, creating construction documents. The current plan is to complete detailed design later this summer and fall. We plan to put it out to bid this fall, early winter, with the intent that those pedestrian bridges have a relatively long lead time, that they take the manufacturers some fabrication time, so we want to get this out ideally by the end of this year so that we have a contract award. Contractor starts ordering shop drawings, they're ordering the trusses. Next spring, summer, contractor's active, everything's wrapped up by the end of the summer. I think that's all I have. At that, if you have any questions or any concerns or anything else I can answer at this point.
Steve, thank you very much. Yeah, I think this is a great project as we continue to build out the Fifth Ward, particularly over off of Water Street, where we have more population growing. This will really help taking Edgeworth connectivity to the next level, and also enhances the safety, public safety, particularly over by Murray Street Playground, just enhances the opportunity to utilize your canal trail more, and just enhances the whole Pines Island and Howard's Cove area. So, and brings people from down there up into Broad Street, DRI, South Street, and everything. So I really think it's a great project. Really appreciate that. Thanks.
No way you could put an elevator at the bottom of the hill and take you back.
Jim's gonna go first.
Couldn't fit that in, huh? Yeah.
You didn't have enough money for us.
Rope tow.
Right, yeah, rope tow, I could do
There
that.
you go.
Are there any other questions? Steve, we want to thank you. Appreciate it, and I'm sure you'll be back, update us at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue on. We'll open the floor to public comment. If anyone has public comment. Okay, so then we'll move into committee reports. Ms. Reed.
I have none.
Mr. Campanella. Report. Mr. Collins.
Yeah.
I have just the sustainability, as we're seeing more lights go up, so it looks great. And we're working, and how much that, no, just, thank you.
I have an update for the technology committee. I checked in, I spoke with Alan from StoreTech, and we made a lot of upgrades to cybersecurity. They've been monitoring our system now for a while, so they plan to give us kind of an update on what they've seen and some recommendations. So as soon as I get that, I'll schedule a committee meeting and we can go over that. If we have issues, we can bring them up then too. Yeah.
Mr. Andrew? And Mr. Clark?
Tonight, before our council meeting, we had a special projects committee meeting to continue our discussion about taxi cab fares and taxi cab code in State of Glens Falls. We have addressed two outstanding issues. We'll be preparing a working document to present to the mayor and the common council to take a look at for their feedback. And we're moving forward with that. Hopefully we'll have something by the end of the summer that we can present to the public and I think really transform the taxi cab code into something that's more current and valid.
We appreciate you taking that.
My pleasure.
Okay, at the end, we're gonna ask for Jeff, but we're gonna go through our resolutions first, okay? Okay, under the voice vote, is there anything you'd like to pull for discussion? 3 is a resolution approving the minutes of the June 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Glens Falls Common Council. 4 is a resolution accepting the June 2021 monthly report for the City Clerk Parking Violations Bureau. 5 is a resolution approving requests to use city streets, sidewalks, and rights of way as recommended by the Board of Public Safety and listed on the attached. 6 is a resolution approving requests to use city park as recommended by the Recreation Commission and listed on the attached.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Roll call vote, is there anything under roll call vote you'd like to pull for discussion? 7 is a resolution establishing a standard work day for Karen Judge, city attorney, and authorizing reporting the day's work listed on the attached to the New York State and local employees retirement system based upon the records of activities. 8 is a resolution approving an outdoor dining permit for Melissa Brennan, DBA Flight Wine Bar Market, former ADK Fresh, 11 South Street, Glens Falls. Replacement of chairs and tables in front of the business from current dates through May 31st, 2022. 9 is a resolution approving the outdoor dining permit for Robert Mastriani, 179 Front Street, DBA Lake George Olive Company. Replacement of chairs and tables in front of the business from the current date through May 31st, 2022, subject to all state COVID-19 requirements. 10 is a resolution approving an encroachment permit for Flight Wine Bar Market, former ADK Fresh, 11 South Street. Replacement of sandwich board sign on sidewalk in front of the business from current date through May 31st, 2022. 11 is a resolution approving encroachment permit for Ryan Cassidy, owner of 15 Long Avenue, tax map number 303.13-8-33 for curb cut and removal of sidewalk following on July 6, 2021. Favorable advisory opinion from the planning board with the understanding that the sidewalk and apron shall be concrete. 12 is a resolution approving encroachment permit for Gerald Baker, 10 Baldwin Avenue, tax map number 302.12-13-37 for a curb cut following July 6, 2021. Favorable advisory opinion from planning board with the understanding that the sidewalk and apron shall be concrete to widen the driveway apron with sidewalk replacement to enable access to a second parking space for the residents. 13 is a resolution approving a weekly mobile food unit license for Kurt Bauerschmidt, Northeast Old Fashioned Soda, DBA Wild Bill Soda, 180 Fonny Road, Waterford, New York, to vend at the Laterak Arts Festival on August 14th and 15th, 2021. 14 is, nope, that was him. Did I do him? No. 14 is resolution approving mobile food unit license for Kyle Matt, 301 Emma Road, Mill Grove, New York. Megan Hernandez, DBA Chance Deli, 325 Hughes Road, Schenectady, New York, 1590 Main Street, Rotterdam Junction, New York, allowing each to vend at Grand Park on July 24th, 2021 for the Glens Falls Symphony 15 is a resolution authorizing drawdown of payment of 2 new deferred loans approved by Greater Glensville Local Development Corporation under the City Small Business Recovery Fund, SBRF, CDBG-CB and CDBG-CB3, funding provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, under the Federal CARES Act to assist small businesses within the City of Glensville in preparation, prevention, and response efforts related to COVID-19 pandemic. 16 is a resolution hiring Kenyon Pipeline Inspection LLC on a time and material basis to immediately address the flooding issue between Bowman Avenue and Chester Street. 17 is a resolution authorizing the city controller to create a capital project for the amount of $250,000 for the engineering of the Third Ward Storm Sewer Improvement Project. 18 is a resolution approving a supplemental consultant agreement with Craig Manning for construction agreement SWA 02 construction inspection for Dix Avenue Preservation Project, the amount of $190,000, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement, which is approved by the city attorney. 19 is a resolution authorizing the controller to decrease the general fund balance by $124,103 and increase general fund expense line A 1099019,000 interfund transfers by $124,103. 20, resolution authorizing the controller to decrease general fund expense line A 23410-4404 fire prevention and training by $10,696.34, increase general fund expense line A 23410-1000 fire personnel services by $10,696.34. 21 is a resolution authorizing the city controller to establish a capital project for Empire State Development Smart Cities Innovation Partnership Grant Program in the amount not to exceed $205,300 and authorizing the Economic Development Director to provide administrative support for the project. Resolution 22 is to approve the authorizing the mayor of Dan Hall to enter into an agreement with the appraisal company to conduct appraisals of 3 designated city LDC controlled properties in conjunction with the DRI Market Square project for a total cost of $4,750. 23 is a resolution approving community development annual payments of $47,555.08. And 24 is a resolution approving the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilwoman at Large Reed.
Yes.
Councilman Campbell.
Yes.
Councilman Collins.
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer. Yes. Councilman Underberry.
Yes.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Okay, so we will go to old business, Mr. Reed.
Have none.
I have none. What you, Mr. Collins?
I have none.
Ms. Palmer.
I just want to thank everybody for the third ward super improvements.
Okay.
We're going to work on it. Very grateful for, I know a lot of people have been working on it for a long time, so I appreciate that. I also just wanted to mention how nice it is to see our city kind of come back to life. I've been at so many events recently, and so many people have been putting things on between theater in the park, basketball in the park, take play, library events. It's just really nice. We're very lucky. Yeah.
Mr. Ember.
Just piggyback on that, and I don't want to steal any of Robin's thunder, but Take a Bite was last week. It was really nice to see everybody out smiling, and the weather held off, and it was a really good day. So, look forward to it. It was busy, yeah, it was really good. But Robin will come for sure. That's it.
Mr. Clark.
I just want to say, tonight's meeting was really exciting. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. Some of it not so sexy, but some of it really cool. So, I mean, but this is, I mean, it's a testament to you, Mayor, and to the rest of this council for all the great stuff we're doing here for the city. So, congratulations.
We're not done yet, Jeff.
No, we still got some time to go.
New business.
I have none.
Mr.
I have none.
Mr.
I have none.
And Ms. Palmer.
I have none.
Mr. Ember.
I have none.
And how about you, Mr. Clark?
I do have something, it's been a long time since we've gathered in fellowship for breakfast, and so I'll be sending out a text to everyone to see if we can't find a date in August to gather around a table to just, once again, be together in a different manner, so,
Great.
thank you.
Okay. So I asked Jeff Flagg to come tonight to give us a little update on our DRI and the projects that we've got going on South Street. So Jeff, would you come up and address the council, please?
Hopefully every microphone works.
Can I take it back there and yell?
You can call a lot of things quiet.
That's right, yeah. That's why I got kicked out of the library. You thought it was exciting, you haven't even had dessert yet.
You have 15 minutes.
Okay, yes, I know I picked an inauspicious council meeting because you had so many things going on, but I did think it was important to sort of keep the council apprised of what's going on now that we're beginning to make some progress on the DRI, particularly on the core projects, right? Market Center and Market Square. And if you don't know the distinction, Market Center being what we have referred to as the year-round farmers market, the building that the city's going to own, build, and operate, and then Market Square, the remainder of the buildings that are being developed by an outside developer. The DRI working group has been meeting regularly, both internally and with the architects and the developers who are working on the various projects. So the working group itself has been meeting weekly, and then we've been meeting bi-weekly in sort of alternating weeks with the vision architects about the Market Center and with Venatio about Market Square. At some point, we may actually sort of combine those, but for now. I want to cover the both of them very briefly. As far as the Market Center, Envision, we met with them most recently last Wednesday. They gave us they presented a schematic design, sort of basic design. What this really covered was the basic structural characteristics of the building as they proposed them, design accommodations based on the various prospective uses that we're looking at, right? The sort of multiplicity of uses that we're hoping this building will put to once it's constructed. General traffic flow, and by that I'm referring to both human traffic flow and vehicular traffic flow as we look more specifically at the building, and then environmental considerations. I think the most important sort of, I don't want to call it sticking point, but the point of discussion at this point is really sort of centered around accommodating the farmers market to the extent possible while recognizing that this facility needs to be as flexible as possible for as many uses as possible, right? So we recognize that this was sort of presented in its very initial iteration as sort of this year-round market, but we realize, I think everybody realizes when you look at the amount of use that will be put to for the farmers market specifically, that it has to be used for a variety of purposes. This has required, I think, quite a bit of deliberation about things like ingress and egress, right? How many points of access there's going to be, how open the building's going to be, climate control considerations, right? Specifically with respect to cooling, on-site parking, how much there will be, if any, accessibility, various accesses to the building, and then to some extent, to a larger extent going forward, will be sort of spatial considerations with respect to the buildings that are around it, right? More specifically, the buildings that Venatio is looking at developing, and how and whether we're going to integrate those buildings so that we can sort of make this whole square sort of an integrated space. So we'll be meeting again with them on July 26th, I believe, 2 weeks from tomorrow, I think. What a week from tomorrow? 2 weeks from tomorrow. And they'll begin to give us some sort of price considerations for some of the design aspects that we're looking at. And we can still make some design decisions from there. With respect to Market Square, we're actually meeting with Venatio. They provided us with several different sort of designs based on a number of different scenarios for the composition and layout of the buildings. They gave us an initial design that sort of emerged from the design that was out there 40 years ago, I guess, or something, approaching that. And they've given us sort of two variations on that, both of which sort of modify the number of residential units and or parking spaces and or possible retail spaces as well. So what we're really going to be doing tomorrow is meeting to make the first sort of initial discussions about finances, what these various things will cost, and to some extent what they will be looking at from the city as far as participation in a variety of ways that we can support the project based on these different designs that they're looking at. So we're just starting to get sort of moving on both fronts. We're trying to move these as close as we can to parallel with each other. The idea right now would be for Market Center and the rehab buildings, right, to be sort of moving in parallel as far as their redevelopment, and then probably looking at where the current pavilion is, some sort of phase 2 that they'll have for the remainder of Market Square, with a goal of trying to get to construction perhaps as early as late winter or early spring. Is that short enough? What's that?
Late winter.
Shovel
Late winter or
in the
spring.
ground, shovel in the ground, not completely, but
start construction.
No, I know that, but that's.
We won't get your shed done by, done by.
So Jeff, I appreciate all the work that you're doing. We put you in a situation here in February and said, here, go for it. And you're doing a good job trying to keep these meetings together, and we appreciate everything you're doing. And these aren't the only things that you're doing, so
No.
we appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Not even close.
Yes, and, so it's not go forth and multiply, it's go forth and magnify. That's what it is.
Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
guys.
And good job, Jeff, thank you.
Anyone else from the public that would like to address the council?
Hello, Robert Barton, 19 William Street. Yes, Take a Bite was fantastic, and it's just going to get better. We already have at least 3 more people signed up this week. Working on a 4th, and as long as the weather holds off, the hourly forecast looks good. Fingers crossed. Last week it looked pretty bad about 2 o'clock, and everything cleared up by 5. So I will make a point of making a post about the street closure about middle of the afternoon to make sure everyone's aware it's going to happen. I did hear we had one person that was not thrilled with it, but I'd say there was about 1,000 people out there that were thrilled with it. So pretty good ratio. And so thanks for the city for all the support the collaborative gets, and stay tuned. We have some big things working for the winter. So yeah, some really nice stuff hopefully going on.
So tomorrow, the actual Warren County Health is coming. We're having a vaccination clinic in the gazebo.
Are they going to make it tomorrow? I
I
heard.
think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay, I had heard the 21st, but
Maybe they're not coming.
but if they
They're
do,
coming soon.
if they do, we'll get a word out as early as we possibly can, and
Okay.
get a shot at Take a Bite.
All right, great.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you. And also,
Robert, I just want to say, follow up on the closure of Glen Street. What a pleasure that was. The majority of the vendors are on Glen Street. So what a pleasure it is to walk across the street as opposed to Rich Street, and not have to worry about traffic.
It was nice.
Crisscrossing.
My question of the day to everyone I ran into was, do you think this was worth it? Was it worth closing the street? And everyone to a person said yes. That it allowed the breathing room. We don't need to socially distance anymore, but breathing room is nice when you're talking about having food in your hands and lines up to the vendors. The line to Mikado, the line to Downtown Social, the line at your place were tremendous, and it was a great turnout. So, and I think it's necessary, and especially if we get more and more people in the next 7 weeks, it's gonna continue to be necessary. So I appreciate the city allowing us to do that.
I don't know if word had gotten to you, but we met with the architect group on the new market building Wednesday afternoon in the library, and then afterward, the chief architect said she was hungry, and 2 of the members of the working group took her to Take a Bite, and she was blown away.
Awesome.
Blown away, and she said it just gives her a totally different vision of what we're trying to do with the DRI.
Exactly.
Congratulations.
My head has been taking that closing Glen and going right around the corner down south and having and continuing
Yep.
that kind of stuff.
Yep,
Because
yep.
people will fill those streets as long as we keep our fire chief in the loop and the
Mhm.
public safety to make sure we can get in and out of there in case there's a fire.
Yep.
I mean, every business is benefiting.
Yes,
from
I
people
think.
getting out there.
Yeah, I can't wait for the market on South. It's going to be or Market Square is it called now?
Well, there's the market, and then there's Market Square.
Okay.
The market is gonna be the pavilion building.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure I have the right verbiage. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So, I just have a couple little things. As you can tell, we have a lot of construction going on. The bank is gonna start their $15 million project shortly over on Glen Street, and that will affect the parking lot.
We're used to it.
Yeah, so,
Right, Robert?
and also that we have our Dix Avenue projects moving along, probably be done in September. We have Maple and Walnut Streets are being done. We also have a Henry Street project, so there's a lot of construction going on, there's a lot more. So some good news that I wanted to pass on, and I don't know if you are aware of it, but Senator Schumer's office called me on a program he created called Save Our Stages. And the award of $104,000 to the Wood Theater
That's awesome.
and $142,000 to the Adirondack Theater Festival. So, we have put together, so those are two good, awards that we got to keep these businesses going. Those are great assets that we have here in our city. So, does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, or any comments? All right, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.